Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivucharya Asutra Sat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Chandravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासति गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवदीप धाम की श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी की यमुना माई की श्रीमती तुलसी देवी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutle Srimate Bir Krishna Goswami Niti Namne Namo Hamsa Nikashaya Prabhupada Priyayate Shuddha Shuddhi Nishthabhyam Tasya Vakya Nuvadine. Okay, good morning and Hare Krishna everyone. Thanks for attending the class. Welcome to all our Mayapur TV viewers from all over. I understand there's some from New Zealand today. And also Facebook. So this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 2, yes. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay. Right. Etat veditum ichhami Tattvam tattva vidam svara Harer adbhuta viryasya Katha lokha sumangala. Etad veditum ichhami Tattvam tattva vidam vara Harer adbhuta viryasya Katha lokha sumangala. Etad veditum ichhami Tattvam tattva vidam vara Harer adbhuta viryasya Katha lokha sumangala. Etad veditum ichhami Tattvam tattva vidam vara Harer adbhuta viryasya Katha lokha sumangala. Etad veditum ichhami Tattvam tattva vidam vara Harer adbhuta viryasya Katha lokha sumangala. Okay. Etad, this, veditum, to understand, ichhami, I wish, tattvam, truth, tattva vidam, of those who are well versed in the absolute truth, vara, O best, Hare, of the Lord, adbhuta viryasya, of the one who possesses wonderful potencies, katha, narrations, loka, for all planets, sumangala, auspicious. Okay, so we've got the translation and the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, translation. The king said, I wish to know narrations concerning the Lord, who possesses wonderful potencies, are certainly auspicious for the living beings in all planets. So we can repeat. The king said, I wish to know narrations concerning the Lord, who possesses wonderful potencies, are certainly auspicious for living beings in all planets. Okay, so purport. Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the activities of the Supreme Lord, is auspicious for all living beings residing in every planet. One who takes it as belonging to a particular sect is certainly mistaken. Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly a very dear scripture for all devotees of the Lord. But it is auspicious even for the non-devotees also, because it explains that even the non-devotees hovering under the spell of material energy can be delivered from such clutches if they hear narrations of the Srimad Bhagavatam with devotion and attention from the right source representing the Lord by disciplic succession. Okay, so Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Ham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so it's actually a very simple message, a bit difficult to do for some, but the message is that Srimad Bhagavatam is really what we should be reading in order to realize God. This is what this purport is saying. Maharaj Parikshit is especially requesting, he said, I wish to know all the narrations concerning the glories and the potencies of the Lord, Supreme Lord. And so I guess from here, Sukadev Goswami is going to give a lot of narrations of the Lord in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And my goodness, Srimad Bhagavatam is full of stories of the Lord Krishna. But if you really want a reference, then this will be the reference where the king asks the valuable question, the $1 million question and the request. So this is Canto 2, Chapter 8.2. This is where King Parikshit asks, can I please hear all the narrations? So Srimad Bhagavatam is known as the king of all the Vedic scriptures. It's the actual nectar, other than obviously the Bhagavad Gita. So why we've covered this in a class previously. The question was, why do we need to know about the devotees of the Lord? Because the Srimad Bhagavatam is full of stories of the devotees of Lord Krishna also. It's not just of Lord Krishna, although Canto 10, it describes all the pastimes of Lord Krishna. But a lot of those cantos are referring to all the devotees of Lord Krishna and their journey, the spiritual journey, and what has happened and occurred. And so the question is, why do we want to know about them? Why not just Krishna? So the question was answered thus, because we've got some questions here, some narrations here about Narad Muni, how he is born, how he becomes a devotee, then what is his austerities. Then there is Dhruv Maharaj, who is a little boy. His mother is Suniti, and the other one, what is it, Suruchi, right? That's right. Why doesn't he get that benefit that Suruchi's son is getting? And so he goes and does this tapasya. These are all about devotees of Lord Krishna, but not directly Lord Krishna. And so in both the cases, Narad Muni and Dhruv, they're boys, young boys, and they managed to get Lord Krishna himself. And so the answer for that question is, why do we want to know about the devotees of Lord Krishna rather than Lord Krishna himself? It's full of those stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, there's Gajendra, there's so many, we will have to list all of them. The answer was that we need to know about the devotees because they have personal personal association of Lord Krishna. And it rubs off like paint. So we need to know those stories of personal associates and their pastimes, because they are as good as Lord Krishna's pastimes itself, which is able to pull us back to Godhead or deliver us just by listening and being inspired by stories of the devotees of Lord Krishna. And just recently I was listening to, I always listen to online classes of my Guru Maharaj. He gives class every day, basically 2 times a day, and there's more. So he's doing Nectar of Devotion every morning at 7 a.m. Now our time will be 8 a.m. since we've done daylight saving, so he's doing it right now, and I'm missing his class. But normally I'm sitting outside listening to his class, then I come in here. So, and in his class, he had said that he would like personal association of Narad Muni. Like if he wanted, if somebody was to ask him what would be his spiritual aspiration, then he would say, I'd like to be associate of Narad Muni. So why do we aspire for that rather than Krishna? Because we get the pure bhakti from devotees like that. So we listen, we associate with the pure devotees like Narad Muni. And as far as learning about the Srimad Bhagavatam, we follow the disciplic succession. I will read a little bit from the Krishna book in a little while, which explains a little bit about why we need to listen about the Srimad Bhagavatam from someone from disciplic succession. In just a little while. Apart from that, we know that our Srimad Bhagavatam has been translated by Srila Prabhupada. So every time we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't only get the stories of the Lord, and his wonderful devotees, but we also get direct association with Srila Prabhupada anyway. So there is a lot of nice and beautiful advantages of reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. Another one was Mahavishnu Swami, who's left this planet. He used to train his disciples to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Always must read the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it has got, it's priceless. The potency of the Srimad Bhagavatam is so priceless that anyone can be delivered. And right here in this purport, it's saying that even if you're a non-devotee, you can be delivered. So the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimited. So let me find my this Krishna book and see if I can read a little bit. This is chapter 87 of the Krishna book, and it is giving us some idea, because we've got the Srimad Bhagavatam and we've also got the Vedas. There is a difference between the Vedas and there's the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are other Vedas, like we've got the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sham Veda, and then we've got the Upanishads, Puranas. Then we come up gradually and then all the top to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this particular chapter is actually given, the prayers are given by the Vedas itself. So we've got the Vedas, Rig Veda, Sham Veda, Yajur Veda, all these, they are personified, they are in person. So if you look at, they say this is the Rig Veda, you'll have this one can convert to a spiritual form, like with a body who can speak. So this is Vedas personified. So why I'm talking about the Vedas is because the Vedas, what happens is at the time of dissolution, everything obviously goes back, all the cells or nucleus, all the living entities, they all go back to Mahavishnu. And all the living entities are residing there. So at that time, what happens is the Vedas, they go in their personified form and they sing the glories of the Lord at that time. So I'm just going to read a little bit from per parts, and because this particular chapter has got so many, I think maybe about 50 pages, we can't cover it in one day. So I just highlighted briefly what happens. So in this chapter particularly, King Parikshit, he inquired from Sukadev Goswami about a very important topic, understanding the absolute truth, because Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the absolute truth, right? So he asks, his question is, since Vedic knowledge generally deals with the subject matter of three qualities of the material world, how can then we approach the subject matter of transcendence? In other words, the Vedas, they don't have the transcendental knowledge that we require, that is present in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So why have it in the first place? That's his question. So he says, which is that transcendental knowledge, it's beyond the approach of the three material modes. And since the mind is material and the vibration words is material sound, how can Vedic knowledge, expressing by the material sound the thoughts, how can we approach transcendence? That's the whole question is why, because a lot of people, they want to read the Rig Veda or the Yajur Veda or something like that. Why do they want to read that in the first place? Why not just go straight to Srimad Bhagavatam? So here, then Shukadev Goswami actually answers. He answers, let me see, okay. He answers in a very interesting way. The purpose of King Parikshit's inquiry was to ascertain from Sukadev Goswami whether the Vedas ultimately describe absolute truth or not. Because the Vedas deal with three departments of activities. One is Karma Kand, which we recite every morning about Karma Kand. That's one of the offenses. We cannot, do those ritualistic activities that are in Karma Kand. And the other one, the second one, is the process of understanding absolute truth by speculation methods. That's the second. This is in the Vedas. And the third one is the Upasana Kanda, or the worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead and the other demigods, sometimes the other demigods. So three departments. Then, in answering King Parikshit's question, Sukadev Goswami replied that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has created the mind, senses, living force of the living entity for the purpose of why has he actually developed the living entities? Does anybody know? Why has the Supreme Personality created the living? Why did he create the mind, the senses, and the living entities? For the purpose of sense gratification, so that they can actually enjoy and migrate from one kind of body to the next. Because these living entities, they have desires and they want to enjoy. So Krishna says, okay, you can enjoy. So here you go, I'll create. So that's what he does. And so from one body to another, as well as the purpose for allowing liberation, that's the second one. That's the most important one. He creates living entities so then they can actually get liberated by understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam and all that. So that's the better part of actually creating the living entities. So one is so that they can have sense gratification if they want to or if they choose to. And second is that they get liberated. That's the second option, which is why we are all sitting here, which is why we are all reading Srimad Bhagavatam, because we are choosing to be liberated, to get to Krishna. So that's the second one. So he said, in answering the question, he says the Vedic injunctions are there just to give the conditioned souls the chance for sense gratification under regulative principles, and thereby also give them a chance for promotion to higher conditions of life. Ultimately, if the consciousness is purified, one comes to the original position, goes back to Godhead. So in other words, the Vedic scriptures are like attending primary school. You get conditioned, but it does regulate you. So it's not all bad. It's rather than being like a totally non-devotee. This is to do with those people who are coming into the Krishna consciousness, or maybe realizing Krishna, or attempting to read the Bhagavad Gita, or trying to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, but they're not quite there yet. They're still in the materialistic sort of modes of nature. They are still materialistic, have material desires. Then reading the Vedas will actually condition them or arrange for their consciousness and prepare it for further advancement. So they can be better prepared and absorb the knowledge given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then they go back to Godhead. So another point clearly stated in the answer of Sukadev Goswami is that the mind, senses and intelligence of the individual living entity that the Lord created, it is not stated that living entity themselves were ever created. Just as the shining particles of sun's rays always exist within the sun, the living entities exist externally as parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the whole Vedic process is to alleviate the darkened condition. I think early in the morning we all recite, what is it? The one where we are illuminated, we are in darkness, and then what's the slok that we recite every morning? Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun. So we are in a state of darkness, and then when we read the Vedas, the Vedic scriptures, it enlightens us. So it removes the darkness to a certain stage where then we can get to the absolute truth. So the whole Vedic process is to elevate the darkened condition. Ultimately, when the senses and mind and the conditions are being fully purified, he comes to this original position called Krishna consciousness, and that is liberation. So it says, when one's mind, intelligence, senses are purified of material contamination, one can understand the original feature of the absolute truth as the person. The Vedic process is to promote the conditioned souls gradually from the mode of ignorance. So they're all first in the mode of ignorance, then they rise to the mode of passion, and then finally they rise to the mode of goodness. Then they can start reading the Srimad. Oh well, if they read the Srimad Bhagavatam, then they can get the proper nectar and be purified and then liberated. So I'm trying to come to the place where where the Vedas come in. Sukadev Goswami continued. He spoke to Parikshit Maharaj, "My dear king, in order to answer your question, I shall narrate a nice story." So he is going to narrate this story so that Parikshit Maharaj can get better understanding. This story is important in connection because it's in connection with Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the narration is a conversation between Narayan Rishi and the great sage Narada. So there's a story between Narayan Rishi and great sage Narada. Now, who is Narayan Rishi? He still resides in Badrik Ashram and is accepted as the incarnation of Lord Narayan. So this is from the Krishna book. If anybody wants to refer to it, it says here that Narayan Rishi still resides in Badrik Ashram. So he's still there up till today. And he's the incarnation of Lord Narayan. So it would be nice to get his darshan, I think. Maybe we can pay a visit to Badrik Ashram. Badrik Ashram is situated in the northern part of the Himalaya mountains. And it is always covered with snow. Religious Indians go there. They still go there to visit this place in the summer season when the snowfall is not very, very severe. I didn't know that. This is something that's quite new when I read this part. That we can actually, I was joking when I said we should go there, but we can actually go there and we can see him. Oh, well, we can see the place, Badrik Ashram, which is quite nice. Anyone's been there? No? No. Anyway, so what happened was once when Narada, the great devotee, ascetic amongst demigod, he was traveling to different planets. He desired to meet the ascetic Narayan Rishi in Badrik Ashram. He was traveling and he decided that he wants to meet. So he wanted to offer him respect. So the great sage incarnation of Godhead, Narayan Rishi, has been undergoing great penances and austerities from the very beginning of creation to teach the inhabitants of Bharatvarsh how to attain perfection stage. So he is there to teach, maybe at the end of Kali Yuga he might come out and then start teaching us a lot if we are still around. At that time, if we haven't gotten back to Godhead by the end of Kali Yuga, maybe we can get his mercy. Anyway, so he's practicing austerities over there. And what happens is, it says here, his austerities and penances are exemplary practices for human beings. The incarnation of God Narayan Rishi was sitting amongst many devotees in the village known as Kalpagrama. Of course, they were not ordinary sages sitting with him, so there were other sages sitting with him at that time. And the great Narad also appeared there. And he offered his respects to Narayan Rishi. And Narad Muni asked the same question that Parikshit Maharaj just asked Sukadeva Goswami, same question about Vedic scriptures and about absolute truth. And the question obviously was, does the Vedic scriptures give the knowledge of absolute truth, so that we can develop, we can be liberated. So over there, then Narayan Rishi, he narrated this story. He said the same question had been discussed. So this is the third time this question has been asked. Okay, so first Parikshit Maharaj asked this question. Then Narad Muni asked this question to Narayan Rishi. Narayan Rishi says this question was asked again by I guess you could call them devotees, but the citizens of a planet called Janaklok. Janaklok is above the Swarglok planets, such as the moon and the Venus. These are apparently the moon and Venus, these are the Swarglok planets. So above that is Janakalok. And on this planet, the great sages and saintly persons live there, and they discuss the same point and ask the same question. So the great sage Narayan began to speak, "My dear Narad, I shall tell you that story." So Sukadeva Goswami is telling Narayan Rishi's story. Narayan Rishi's story is telling Janakalok's story. He says, there was a great meeting, which took place a long time ago. And the meeting was attended by the denizens of the heavenly planets and the most important brahmacharis. Who are the most important brahmacharis? The four Kumars, right? So Sanak, Sanananda, Sanatan and Sanat Kumar, they also attended. And apparently Sanananda, one of them were chosen. Now I'll just continue and then we'll come to that point. And he said to Narad Muni, he said, well, the reason you were not there, because usually when there are discussions like this being held, Narad Muni is always there. But in this particular instance, he was not there. So he's explaining to Narad Muni, you were not there because you came to see me in my expansion as Anirudh in the Shweta-deep. So you were absent from there. That's why you don't know. So, and he said this discussion was so delicate that the Vedic scripture, the Vedas themselves, they didn't have the answer. They didn't have the answer. So, then he says, in the discussions held among the four brothers, the four Kumars, one of them was selected, Sanandana was selected to speak. And the other brothers, the other three brothers, they were the audience. And so Sanananda said, after the dissolution of the whole cosmic manifestation, the entire energy of the whole creation in its nucleus form enter into the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, right? And then the Lord at that time, he remains asleep. He remains asleep for a long time. And when there is a necessity of creation, means when again the creation is about to happen, the Vedas personified assemble around the Lord. So the Vedas, they assemble around the Lord and then they start to glorify him. And when they start, they describe all his transcendental, wonderful pastimes, exactly like the servants of a king. When the king is asleep in the morning, it's described here. The reciters, they come and they glorify the king, and then he wakes up to his own glories. So the Vedas, they all kind of go around, assemble around the Lord, and they start to glorify him. And that's when the Vedic personified, they sing these beautiful prayers. So we don't have all the time to go through this, but I will just touch on some of the important ones that I just highlighted. But Vedic, this chapter is quite long, but if anyone wants to read it, it's quite interesting. It can get a bit boring sometimes because it's too wordy, but if you really want to learn about it. So what do the Vedic reciters say? The first thing they do, they sing. And they say, "Oh, unconquerable Lord, you are the supreme personality. No one is equal to you or greater than you. No one can be more glorious in these activities. All glories unto you. All glories unto you by your own transcendental nature. You fully possess all 6 opulences." So we know all that, right? "As such, you are able to deliver all conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. O Lord, we fervently pray that you kindly do so. All the living entities, being your parts and parcels, are naturally joyful, eternal, and full of knowledge, but due to their own faults, they imitate you by trying to become the supreme enjoyer. Thus, they disobey your supremacy, okay, and become offenders. And because of their offenses, your material energy has taken charge of them. Thus, their transcendental qualities of joyfulness, bliss, and wisdom have been covered by the clouds of the 3 material qualities. And these cosmic manifestations made of the 3 material qualities is just like a prison house. So they are basically giving a rundown of what's the plight of the living entities. So they describe that first. And then this particular part of the prayer, it actually illustrates that the Vedas are meant for helping the conditioned souls. So they are actually meant to help us if we are kind of struggling spiritually. And why? To understand Krishna. So in this particular prayer, they are saying that we are here to, or at least the Vedas, when the words, the meaning of that becomes that the conditioned souls can be delivered and understand Krishna. But anyway, Prabhupada later on explains the statements of the personified Vedas give clear evidence that Vedic literature is presented only for understanding Krishna. It is presented only for understanding Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that although all through the Vedas, it is Krishna alone who has to be understood. So the Vedas do say that you need to worship Krishna, apparently it does say. Over here it is saying that the Vedas do say that. And then I will cut to the chase and go right till the end. The Vedas also have recommended worship of different demigods as parts and parcels of Krishna. So we can, I guess, worship the demigods as a Jiva Tattva. They are Jiva Tattvas. So they will be part and parcel of Krishna. And it is to be understood that such instructions are meant for less intelligent men. So if you happen to be less intelligent, then you read the Vedic scriptures, who are still attracted by material sense enjoyment. So an intelligent person, therefore, does not, under protection of different demigods, does not stand under the protection of different demigods. Although they are part and parcel of Krishna, rather, he stands on solid ground of Krishna consciousness. That makes his position sound and secure. So what it is telling us is if you really want to be sound and secure, you understand about Krishna consciousness, which is available in the Srimad Bhagavatam, not the Vedic scriptures. So this particular shlok is in this particular text, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 2, it's telling us that we need to read the Srimad Bhagavatam or listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam by disciplic succession. Actually, this particular chapter also proves that we need to question someone from the disciplic succession because Narad Muni is asking Narayan Rishi, Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukadev Goswami. In Janakalok, they are asking the 4 nice little boys, brahmacharis, children, but they are very highly knowledgeable. Even the 4 Sanat Kumaras, they went through the Vedic scriptures first. They read that first. And then they were purified, and then they got the full knowledge of the absolute truth. So here, it also proves that we need to go through disciplic succession. That actually also means that whoever is sitting there giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class, or a Bhagavad Gita class, they need to be, for want of a better word, initiated by Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. The reason is, then the effect of the knowledge delivered has better or greater impact. I come from, where other temples, they actually prefer, this can be controversial obviously, because anybody can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's also for the non-devotees. But for those who are especially preaching, and the word needs to reach out there, the reason was that the disciplic succession, actually the power, the effective power comes from high above. And if you do take the initiation and there's an initiated person reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, then the strength of that class or the delivery of the knowledge comes from the full parampara behind him. Just like we chant on our beads, and the dust of our spiritual master is there, initiated, if you are initiated. So the dust of his fingers gets onto the beads. So when we chant, we get the full mercy. And he chants on Prabhupada's beads, right? And Prabhupada chants on the beads given to him by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and before that, and so on. So the power comes from there. So somebody who is speaking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, really, if they are in the proper disciplic succession, they come all the way to Srila Vyasadeva. The power is there. Their instrument, but the effect is quite good. And later on in this particular text also, it's written there, oh no, actually in my notes, which I got from another, probably Bhagavad Gita, that we are not supposed to read the Srimad Bhagavatam for money. We can't do that. So I can't be sitting here in the class and go, okay, Prabhu, $50 for you, $20 for you, $100 for you. No, I can't do that. We're not supposed to do that. There's not full effect. So anyone who's also giving classes, preferably to a large number, is better, ideally. It's not a hard and fast rule, obviously, but ideally should be initiated because they have the parampara behind them. That's what the whole thing was. Anyway, so at the end it says, I'll just go to the end, which is, I'm not quite sure where it is, but the whole point is, after reading all the prayers, the Vedic scriptures, in the end, they say that whoever is intelligent must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and must read the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was the conclusion of the Vedic, the Vedas personified when they sing their prayers. I cannot go through even all the points because it's now time. It's 8:45. So I'll stop there. Hopefully we gain something out of this morning's class. It is chapter 87 of the Krishna book, if anybody wants to refer to it. Right, so any questions, any comments? Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes, it does. They do. According to this chapter. So the question was, for those who want to know clearly online, the question was that the Vedas tell us about the karma kands a lot and how to get to the fruitive results, right? But does it tell us anything about worship of Vishnu and Lord Krishna, right? Yes, it does. It tells us there's one part of the Vedas that tells us to worship the demigods, but in accordance to the regulative principles. So it is kind of regulated. And in that, there is worship of Lord Vishnu also. And if whoever is following that part of the Veda, when they follow the demigods worship, and they, according to their regulative principles, then the understanding comes automatically, naturally. They get purified, then they are bordering or on the border of becoming Krishna conscious. So it is there to help the conditioned souls, and it does. There is a section for karma kand, and there is a section for speculation, and then there is a section in the Vedas for worship of demigods and Lord Vishnu. It's there. Yeah, for those souls who are following that side of it, but it is unregulated. So it is not a bad thing to read the Vedas if they follow the regulative, whatever regulations are given in there. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay. No? Yep. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Puran ki jai.